Have you ever wanted to serve internationally but don't have a lot of time or money? Worried that you cannot be of assistance because you don't know the local language? Well, International Service Learning has a solution. Consider one of their many short-term service learning trips abroad where they will take care of everything from country arrival to departure. Choose from a wide variety of programs and an ever-growing list of countries with International Service Learning, where their motto is travel, serve, learn. The website's easy, internationalservicelearning.org. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the International Service Learning Experiential Education Podcast, where our goal has always been to share the voices of international service. I'm Dr. Patrick Hickey, or Dr. H, and it has been my honor to be the host of this podcast. It's another great day to talk about service, and joining us today to do so is Tiffany. Tiffany, our meeting face-to-face, so to speak, through Zoom for the first time. We've chatted on the phone prior to this just to get to know each other a little bit. I'm real excited to have her with us today. We share some commonalities, which will come out later as we chat. But before we get going, Tiffany, if you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, either your education or career path, and what I like to call your extra professional activities, those things you do that we'd love to hear about.
Awesome. I thank you so much, Patrick, for having me. I really appreciate this time. And, I think the more people we meet in our lives, the better we all are, and more our lives are enriched. So having this opportunity was really special. I grew up in Maine. I'm from Maine, and just recently have been a root transplant to Florida. The cold just got a little too much. And I am a teacher. I've been a teacher in one way or another for the last 30 plus years. And I have even tried to leave the profession and been called back to it, right? It's more than a job for me, for sure. And education is my passion, and helping elevate teachers around the world and helping students.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that draw back into teaching. When I meet teachers, I always say, God bless, because there's so much that you do and we're never paid enough for what we do. And most of us that go into teaching because, we're passionate about it. It is a calling. I mean, to put yourself out there and to educate our students. And we really appreciate that you are a teacher. Now, tell us a little about your service path in life. What have you done? Because this podcast, as you know, is about service. And I'd like to just hear what's been your involvement up until this point in time.
I think one of my favorite things I did was become a Girl Scout when I was young, Patrick.
That's a great beginning.
The very beginning. I love service. And, it just makes sense to me, to be honest. I'm a big sister. I've been a nanny, babysitter, childcare provider, and being of service is also much like being a teacher, right? It's like every chance I get, how can I help? I think that is my job here, is to just look for those opportunities. So, I've been active in my church, active in youth groups. I was active in a camp growing up where I was a camp counselor and led wilderness trips. And we started an inner city day camp, actually, in the early 90s, where we brought camp, which was coming from New Hampshire, into the city, right? And so it was so powerful for me, someone who'd grown up in Maine and not lived in the city. I got to have this experience, right in high school, right out of high school, that showed me another world, showed me a world beyond my bubble. And I think that's where I really got bit by the bug of service, and shown how clearly it fills you up, how clearly it can fill you up and bring you just allows me to be my best version of myself.
And can bring you great joy also by being
Oh yeah.
involved. And I like to ask our guests, what their service path has been, because I think some people struggle to get involved in service. So it's always nice that you share the variety of different things, from Girl Scout to Big Sister to nanny to church related activities, camp, day camps. Those are great leads for people that are struggling to find out something, and it may be in their own backyard that they can find a service opportunity. So thank you for sharing some
Mhm.
of what I'm sure are some of many of your service opportunities. Well, let's speak a little specifically about your international service, because our podcast is International
Mm.
Service Learning, and our goal is to hear the voices of international service. Tell us a little bit about your journey and where the international piece comes in.
Yeah, I was I was working with a gentleman who turns out much like you, but he had done all the highest peaks on all seven continents, and he'd skied to the South Pole and the North Pole, and he's an amazing man. His name's Sean Swarner, and I had been working with him, and he brings people to Kilimanjaro who've been affected by cancer. And as we were working together, I have two kids, I'm a maid, I'm a teacher, and he would say, Tiffany, someday you're gonna come to Africa. You'll see. You're gonna come to Africa. Someday you'll do this. And uh, of course, have conversations much like we all do, sitting around the table. Yeah, sure, I'll do that someday. Not really thinking that I ever would. Didn't really I didn't see for sure how it fit into my plan. It wasn't something I had a lifelong dream of. It wasn't, it was really something that was in the back of my mind. And so it was when both my parents passed away from cancer, but my mom passed away in 2022, that I was really struck with the idea that we can't say someday forever.
Mm, yep,
This is it.
yep.
And that was what sparked my idea. And I said, okay, I can't say someday forever. I have to take a step. What is that going to be? How am I going to do? And I made that decision when I lost my mom, that I was going to climb Kilimanjaro to
Mm.
kick cancer's butt.
I mean, it's a great decision, but then what was your process after that?
Yeah, I mean, my process was really molecular, to say the least. I had no idea, right, how to do this. I'm not a typical mountain climber. It isn't something that I was like, yes. So what I thought a great place I could start was buy a pair of sneakers.
Mm,
I can do that, right? I can go down to the sporting goods store and spend 20 bucks, 30, whatever, and buy a pair of sneakers. And I really focus on that pivot point because so many of us have big dreams and things or ideas, and we really can only do what we can do, And so that was where I truly began, was buying that pair of sneakers. And then the snowball ripple effect from buying that pair of sneakers, I started walking more. I started walking more, and then you start walking more, and then you start feeling better, and you start eating better. And then I joined a gym, and then I got hiking boots. And then, and that ripple just really grows when you can take that first little action.
yep.
So the other obstacle of climbing a mountain, as many may know, is the cost of the mountain. Is not It's not a free endeavor. And at the time I was between positions, so I didn't even have a job, but I could start a GoFundMe. And I did that. I started a GoFundMe to climb Kilimanjaro to kick cancer's butt. And I woke up one morning in March and found that my GoFundMe was funded by grape nuts. the cereal post grape nuts. They turned 125 in 2022, and they chose 9 women in the country to fund these adventures. And I was one of those women.
Wow, how fantastic.
It was, it's the journey is bigger than me in many ways, and that was one of the biggest ways that it was bigger than me. And that, I thought it was a joke. My dad's favorite cereal had been grape nuts. It's not something I had thought of recently, until then, but it's now also has become a staple in my household.
Mm.
But that was March. And then April, I actually got diagnosed myself with breast
Mm.
cancer. That was also a very big pivot point for me. Maybe not in the way that people would think. It wasn't a stopper. It was really more of a fuel. It was really more fuel for my fire that now this was so personal. I mean, it was personal before losing your parents, being a caretaker, going through that journey as a caretaker with my parents was already personal, but then having it myself, there's something about a lack of control that comes with a cancer diagnosis. And I just felt more than ever I needed to control something. And I knew that training and climbing was something I could control.
Now, were you able to confer with your physician to get support and guidance in going through
Yeah.
that process?
Yeah, they were amazing. I had an amazing team of doctors, and after getting the diagnosis, it was April. I was slated, and I already was funded by Grape Nuts. I had my boots, and I had the ticket. I was, slated to go in June,
Wow.
and so I went in and told them that, yeah, I know that it's going to be a journey ahead, but I have a mountain to climb.
Well, literally, you have two mountains to climb. Your new diagnosis of breast cancer, and then the big hard rock, Mount Kilimanjaro.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I did. I had 2 mountains to climb, and I knew the one that I could do the most about. And so that's really what it was. It was a blessing to have that to focus on, really. And so that was the first week of June. I had my first lumpectomy, and then that last week in June was when I flew out to Moshi, to Tanzania.
Wow. So you were diagnosed in April with
April.
breast cancer. June had a lumpectomy in the beginning of June. Then at the end of June, you flew to Africa. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a timeline for
Yeah.
sure, really.
Uh,
It's a whirlwind, but I'm so grateful. I wouldn't have had it any
yeah.
other way. And, the fact that I was already going and climbing with a bunch of people who had been affected by cancer, they were really powerful. It was a powerful group to climb with, and I was just so grateful to be a part of that group and excited to be there. But as you know, it's a climb.
It's more than a climb. It takes some planning and a lot of preparation, and there's a fitness level that's required with getting to the top. I know that, been there, done that myself, and I understand you had some challenges on the way up. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I'm so grateful for the first Swahili words that I learned, which were polay, 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 slowly, slowly. That's what the guides would repeat constantly. It would be polay, polay, because yeah, the elevation is really the trick there, and they just would try to get us to go as slowly, conserve your oxygen as you could. And sometimes it's harder for me to go slow than it is to go
Mm.
fast. But it was a practice, and it was, day 3, I got to the lava tower, which was 15,000 feet, and it was amazing to get there and see. And then the next day on day 4 was the Branco Wall, the Kissing Rock, and that was about 16,000 feet. And the mountain is 19,341 feet total. And the Barranco Wall is like the hardest, I think, physically for me, I found anyway, with the rock and using your hands and a really narrow path for your feet. And but I did it, and I did that, and I was so excited. I felt so good that day 4. I felt really elated that I got there and had done this, and it was just huge. It was surreal, really. As we were walking to a waypoint of the stopping point, the ground is like gravel. It's like walking on the moon with the rocks. There's no vegetation. It's like silty dust. And I slipped and fell. And again, it's like there's nothing to stop you. It's like when you're skiing and you fall, you can just slide down really far on that mountain for a while. And that is what happened to me. I slid. And thankfully, a rock did stop my head. But it was also a real wake-up call when I saw the summit that was 2 days away, and I was dehydrated. I had hypoxia, so I wasn't getting oxygen to my brain, and hypothermic and all the things. And so my body just wouldn't let me finish, really. And so I ended up having to not make that summit, which is also a really hard when, so many of us, I'm sure people have experiences where they have tried and worked and put so much effort into something you really think is supposed to happen. I did all my visualization. I really saw myself at the top of the mountain, and it just wasn't going to happen.
So how'd you turn what was given a lemon into lemonade?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and so right, that's why I'm here, right? It's is because I did fall. That's why I'm here. That's why I wrote a book. That's why I've continued to go back to Africa, because it's because of that fall. I always say if I had not just, but if I had summited the mountain and brought my flag up there like I wanted and done that, I would have checked it off the list. I may never have returned. But because I did, I had these 2 days that the team was still going to the top of the mountain to go down into this village in Moshi. And the people, the organization that is climbing also has a hospitality organization, and they had just purchased this building. And so that with those 2 days, they showed me the new building, and they said, Tiffany, we want to build a school here. And I knew then that that was why I had fallen,
Mhm.
why I was there, and was just the skies opened up. And that's how Patchworks was really born. Patch was my maiden name, and so Patchworks, I named it in honor of my parents.
So tell us about Patchworks.
Patchworks is really special. When I went over there, and I loved, the questions that I was looking over, it was there was a question about one of the things that have really changed you, or one of the things that you really noticed. And it was really, for me, the first time I went into the classroom, and the kids are so excited to see you. The kids are all like, oh yay, and we've brought things over for the kids, and that's exciting. But for me, what really stood out was the teacher that was in the corner looking very unimpressed. And his name's Stephen, and he and I are in constant contact. And I saw him, and I knew instantly, Patrick, that I didn't want to be something that would hurt this area. I really wanted to do something that would really provide sustainable help to this to the people, to these people, and to this village, to this town. And so when I asked Steve, I said, "What can I do? What do you need? You know, the kids are adorable and I love them, but I'm really here for you. As a teacher to a teacher, what would help you?" And he was like, "What?" He didn't even, I don't know if he'd ever been asked that before, right? And he was like, "Oh my gosh," his face lit up and he was like, "I need books." He brought out like ripped up mimeograph copies of things. He's like, "We need Swahili and English books, and I need books for the kids and materials to help me teach them, you know?" And I said, "Okay, this is great. We can do this. I can help you. I can bring books over. I can help you. I can bring these things over, you know?" And that's really, so that was how it was born. And then when I came back to the US, that's where the job began as I formed this 501(c)(3 and I, you know, put all the pieces together. What does this really look like when you're starting? I'm not Patchworks is not an international service learning corporation. Like, we got a board of directors and me, and my daughter Lily is now 14. She was 10 at the time when we first went back. But I knew that I was going to have to get as much support, community outreach, and gather as many people that would help as possible. And so that's really what we are all about, is really gathering those people, bringing people over with us that can also help bring supplies and also help get the money, all the things, right? So it's, many hands make light work.
So just help me understand Patchworks. It's bringing
Of
people
course.
to Africa and supplies. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
In what
Yeah.
area? Moshi, Tanzania?
Moshi.
Moshi.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And do you have a school that you work with there now?
Yes. So the school that we're building is called Moshi Kids Center.
Hmm.
And the organization that I work with is called Zara. Zara Tours is the company. And then they have Zara Charity, which is the nonprofit branch that they have in Tanzania, and Mama Zara. And so they also, have all the places that we stay, and they have the guides. If anybody wants to come climb the mountain, we have all the day trips. We have it's a package, right? And the trip is called Service and Safari.
Hmm.
And it's about 10 days of people coming, and we do service work. We plant trees, we bring the supplies, we visit the schools. We also have a medical facility that we collaborate with and bring over things there. We help them with whatever we can. We brought over a lot of birthing kits
Hmm.
we've put together. We help there's a whole reusable pad program that we're putting together. And now there is a section that we're starting to build with women, teaching women how to sew.
Hmm. That's
So
great.
giving them the skill so that then they can sell the items, but have the skills. So we're really looking at all these ways that we can truly be of
So it
service.
all started with your climb on Mount Kilimanjaro. Started with you having a fall. That fall had you going into a village and meeting someone that needed some support of a school. And how long ago was that now that you started? When was your fall? What year was that?
2022.
So since 22, then you've been
Yeah.
working on this project. How can people support Patchworks? What is that process?
Yeah, so the process is, I have my website is tiffanyjoneseducation.com, and they can go there and look at any, we have a GoFundMe up, they can do a donation. As we get closer to going back, I'll add some Amazon wish list supply lists that we have. That's a way, spreading the word, and then coming with us on the trip of a lifetime, really, that takes you into another level of getting to know the people. And I think because we've gone back to this same place, last year when we went back, we got invited to a wedding from one of the women who we've been working with, Doreen, and she was so excited. It wasn't planned. It was just when we got there, she was like, "I'm getting married next week." And everyone that we brought with us, she was like, "Come to my wedding." And it was amazing,
What a
to get
wonderful
to.
opportunity to, I mean, such a cultural event also for all of you to see a wedding in Tanzania, Africa. That's fantastic.
It's really powerful for sure. Yeah.
Who benefits the most from your program? Or
Yeah, the teachers. It
okay.
really is the teachers that we are focused on our support with.
Oh,
And then of course the kids get the added benefit. But it's just things like phones, right? It's things like technology. It's things like the first year I brought over a projector. Obviously there isn't a lot of technology there, but there is some, but it's also really hard to get. And so, I do take donations of used cell phones, and I have Apple, it works with me, and we refurbish them. And so I've brought over phones, I bring over laptops, I bring over whatever tools for the teachers. And the teachers and I are, like I said earlier, but we're in constant contact. So, one year it was like blocks. She wanted me to focus on bringing a lot of blocks over. And there's simple things. It's things that you and I, of many people, we just literally take for
well,
granted when we walk into
uh,
the supermarket.
I was just going to share the same sentiment. It is amazing, isn't it, what we take for granted? And sometimes it's the simple things in life that make such a big difference. And, some of the things that you're sharing, maybe minimal for us, but they're huge for the people on the other end. That's fantastic. Now, what's it like? So you have people, you take people or you take supplies over. What is it like when you come home from a trip? You've been in country for what, 10 days or 12 days. You go to Africa, you work with the people. What are your emotions or your feelings like when you return to the United States?
Gratitude for sure. Gratitude, also a real understanding of how we really don't need half the things we think we need. It's really been such a gift that way for me to really appreciate the little things and just feel full with so much less.
Mhm. Well, I love that sentiment. Feel full with so much less. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. What if people can't afford to go on the trip? I mean, what recommendations do you have for people to that maybe have not been involved in service? Because you listed a good long list of things that you've been involved in. What if there's someone listening that's not been involved in service? They financially can't go abroad. What recommendations do you have for those people? How do they get started?
Hmm. Yeah, I think there's so many opportunities. And like we talked about locally, as a teacher, I will just say that I know every school in your area, no matter what area you are in this country or in this world, there is a teacher that would be so grateful for a set of expo markers or a pack of Kleenex or, things that are, again, the list feels like silly when you talk about glue sticks. But truly, that is where the power is. And that is where our gaps are. A lot of times in education is like teachers' budgets are always getting cut. Teachers are always trying to pay with their out-of-pocket things. And if they could get a stapler in their room that worked, wow, this world could be better.
Well, I know when the summer's ending, for those of us that have friends that are teachers, we hear their needs all the time of some of the things you've described, and it's sad that it is that way. But that's a fantastic recommendation. You don't have to look very far. Look to your left, look to your right. You're going to find someone that's a teacher, and that teacher,
Yeah.
if they themselves don't have a need, they probably have a friend or a colleague that has a need for something. What a wonderful way to get involved in service, help a teacher. Now, since you've traveled internationally, what do you think is the most sustainable or impactful way that we can contribute to global education needs? Because you're trying to do that yourself. You're trying to help the needs of the people in Tanzania. What are what are the ways that we can be most impactful with helping people in other countries to have a baseline education?
One of the stop gaps that I run into often, Patrick, is that people often say, we have enough going on in our country. Why do we need to help someone else? And when I first got that question, I was surprised, to be honest, because I'd never even, it just people, we are a human race on this big, beautiful world, and we all need to be helping each other in whatever way we can. But I understood when I got that question that a lot of people have a vision that is just their their space. And I think the biggest thing that we can do to help global education, to help global medicine, to help our the world is to be open to the idea that we are one. And helping your neighbor is obviously so important. Some neighbors might be further away than others,
Well,
but yet they're still our
yeah,
neighbors.
it's interesting you share that because most of and again, the goal of the podcast is to share the voices of international service. A good number
Yeah.
of people that I've interviewed have shared that they've been challenged by why do they go internationally to help when we do have a great need here, and
Yeah.
I've heard it myself, and it is a challenge, and my comeback is I totally understand that there's a need here, and I do contribute in my own way locally, but there are very few of us that are willing to go internationally. So it is admirable that you can do both. You can get very involved locally and internationally. And I agree, if you look at that concept that we're all neighbors, we're all friends, we all are one, it's so educational just to go to another country to understand
Oh,
where they're coming from, to understand their culture. I think we'd be a much better place if more people traveled, if they could afford to do it.
yeah.
But then for those that can't afford to do it, I feel that yourself, myself, and others that have been fortunate enough to travel, that we become ambassadors for that area that we visited. So the fact that you're establishing an opportunity in Tanzania and advocating for the people there, that's what we need is more ambassadors like yourself that
Mm.
are opening a door of opportunity for people to contribute to your cause or to join you on a trip. And
Mhm.
speaking of trips, for people considering a similar trip
Mhm.
as to what you've done and what you recommend, what advice would you give them about preparing for the experience to go to Tanzania?
What I recommend for people is to go with an open mind and learn yourself. I think that a huge opportunity that I see missed is when people think they're going over to be the helpers and not the learners.
Mm.
And I really, for just from the bottom of my heart, know that I am the one who is getting the help when I go over. And it is the gift. I am getting the gift. And so going over there with that mindset, being open to receive that gift as you travel to other wherever, whether it's Tanzania or whether it's Morocco, know that you are the one that is the learner. And there are so many opportunities for growth and to be open to those.
Yeah, I totally agree. Keeping that open mind and learning from the local people, that's huge. And that's, the name of the podcast again is International Service Learning. We're providing an
Yes.
international service, but we're learning. And a lot of people don't
Yes.
understand that until they get there. And it's a wake up moment. But being open to the experience, knowing that you can learn from these people, that's huge. I always like to ask the question, and it's kind of a silly one, but do you feel that you really made a difference?
100%. I know. I know. I know.
I know it's like I
Yes.
know I just like because sometimes
Yes.
people go over with great ideas and they don't get done half of what they thought, but the fact that
Sure.
they went and did something even minimal, that's huge.
Yeah, of course. And yes, I mean, I feel like I have more to do. I have more I want to do, and there's more to do. However, I know and again, when you go back to, that microbial change that I talked about with my sneakers, that is the same effect you can see when you hand a little child crayons,
Mm.
you know, and you can see that you are making a difference.
Well, it's just that in that case that you're sharing, seeing that smile on their face also, seeing them put crayon to paper. I mean, it's
Oh,
huge, and it's hard to share that if you haven't been there and done that for people. But
yeah,
for those that have been there and done that, I totally understand. I've done
yeah.
it many times, and I see the joy in the child and the joy that I get and that you get from being the person that's involved in the experience at that time. Well, this is huge. I could go on and on and on, but I really appreciate you sharing your journey to the mountaintop, the experience that caused you to form Patchworks, the
Mm,
opportunities that Patchworks does provide for people to either travel there or to contribute to the cause. I appreciate you sharing your voice of international service. It is amazing, and you know, I like it that you didn't make it to the top.
I know.
I mean, because you didn't make it to the top, you went down a different pathway
Yeah,
that changed your whole life. I mean, that's huge, and it is amazing, as they say, the way things happen, and things happen for a reason. We hear that all the time, but your experience of falling, slipping and sliding and falling, and then ending up in a setting that needed a teacher, and you're the teacher that was there. You made it happen, and now you've got an organization that's helping teachers. From a fellow teacher, I appreciate that
hmm
very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you for what you're doing. Any last words of wisdom, Tiffany, that you want to share with our listeners?
I just hope that everyone knows that no matter where they are or how much they feel like they have to contribute, we all have enough to take that next step, and that's what it's all about, is just that next little thing. So if it's, sharing a smile as you go by, that's an impact that we all can have. And so just take that next little step, whatever that may be for you.
Sometimes that little step, and I do appreciate that analogy, sometimes that little step can be a huge leap for some people. I mean,
Yeah.
what you may or what I may consider a little step could be huge for somebody. But having a support system there and know that they're making a difference, no matter how small the step is or how huge the leap is,
Yeah.
that's what makes a difference. So
Yeah.
I thank you for encouraging people to take baby steps or that
Yeah.
small step, and
Yes.
and know that that step will make a difference in someone's life.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about, is helping people to be in a better place than where they were before. So thank you, thank you, thank you for all that you've done. I'll have everything posted on our site for those that want to follow up. And I wish you the best as you continue on future trips with Patchworks. And I thank you for all your endeavors.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I want to sincerely thank our guest Tiffany for her willingness to join us on the International Service Learning Experiential Education podcast. But most importantly, I want to thank Tiffany for the passion that she has shared with us. If you'd like to help Tiffany and Patchworks, feel free to visit her website, tiffanyjoneseducation.com, to see how you can help.